Hello and welcome to the Political Opinions podcast, where every opinion is given equal footing and political tolerance and debate are given their proper attention in a world where both are on the decline. Today's episode will cover different opinions on automation. Automation is quite simply the process of replacing human workers with machines. Be it machines that build cars instead of humans putting it together, machines that could even say drive vehicles instead of having human drivers, and so on. There is a wide range of industries that are starting to develop more AI-based operations and use humans less and less. Automation has been hailed as the future of work. It's cheaper and more efficient in many cases. There are, however, genuine concerns with automation, for example, over-reliance on technology and the potential risk to greater unemployment. Today, we will unpack and compare these opinions. The first and perhaps key reason automation might want to be used by many firms is because in many cases in the long term, it is much cheaper. Think about it. Employees have to have continuous salaries. However, a machine is something you buy once. And yeah, sure, there are costs with maintenance, costs of electricity, but those in total are much lower than the cost of having to pay for workers. There are also lower costs elsewhere, for example, rent for an office, paying more management staff, paying cleaners, waste disposal, healthcare, holiday pay, and so on. Workers in many cases can be very expensive, and so a machine that you buy once and done can often be much cheaper. Now, of course, there is the genuine risk of a loss of jobs. However, some would go so far as to claim that automation actually creates more jobs than it eliminates. Yeah, sure, you might replace 10 workers with one robot. However, the use of that robot created jobs in transportation, research and development, production, and so on. And entire new industries are even being created through the process of automation. Not only the jobs created in running, building and maintaining the machines, but also the wider knock-on effects it has. Now, these machines are often used because they're hailed as being better than workers. Of course, workers do have their advantages. They're more flexible and potentially more adaptable. These benefits, however, in many cases can be outweighed by the fact that machines are just better. A machine can do the same job over and over again without rest. It can do it without fluctuations in performance due to external factors. And machines can be reprogrammed if they did need to change something with it. And often, if you have, for example, a very good engineer who can reprogram it very quickly, that could be quicker than simply having, say, a worker going through a training course. And we can't also forget the benefit to AI learning. Machines do get better as they work. They may not be on the same level of humans, but that might not be important given the higher quality goods a machine can produce. They work perfectly, they remove the risk of human error, and therefore they can be very effective. Now, this might sound threatening, of course, to workers, but there are some genuine positives to the workplace environment through automation. Automation removes boring, repetitive, and in many cases highly dangerous jobs. Working with heavy machinery all day that is loud and dangerous, you could lose your fingers or your life in many cases, is not exactly something many people find appealing. And so removing that and having machines do it instead means that the only jobs left are ones people quote-unquote want to do, potentially. And this has the benefit of creating a better work environment for employees. Things could be quieter, safer, less boring, and so on. And then finally, the real winner of automation, the firms that use these automated machines. Firms are able to operate more efficiently. As I already stated, machines are cheaper, say, per product created or per good created. And they can produce more. They could work flat out 24/7 if they needed to. They don't take sick pay, holidays, mental health issues, anything like that. And as such, machines in many cases are just better than people. And this allows more output with lower costs, meaning more profit. Meaning for firms, it's a very lucrative business to get involved in. And of course there are knock-on effects. With firms having more money, they're able to potentially pay the remaining employees more, invest more, and there are many economic benefits to having these firms perform better. Now, if anyone's ever seen Terminator, we know the risks that machines could offer, and many people have proposed at least the risk of technology being bad. Now, it's not just Stephen Hawking's vision that AI might replace us, which, well, no one wants, but there are some genuine costs to consider. First of all, there is the cost and the price of machines. Yeah, sure, a machine might be cheaper in the long run, but they're not exactly cheap. Let's say you have a worker on minimum wage, say £7 an hour, running repeatedly for a year. That could rack up, well, depending on your minimum wage, £12,000, $20,000, something like that. But if a machine costs, say, £500,000 to much more than that, there is a genuine risk that these upfront costs might simply be too high. And there are, of course, research and development costs. If you want better and newer machines, they're going to be extremely expensive. The price may fall over time, but it's hard to really predict whether or not that will happen. Now, of course, that leads on to the key issue with automation, that it removes jobs. And the issue is not so much that it removes jobs, but the type of jobs that it removes. Automation destroys two types of jobs. It can affect low-paying and very unskilled jobs, say, being a cleaner. You have a robot that does it instead. The issue is that these people who are unskilled lose their jobs, and the new jobs created are high-skilled jobs related to machinery, and as such it's often almost impossible to retrain the very people who lost their jobs to be able to work in the new sectors created, and that is something that is very dangerous. Also, when it comes to skills that cannot really be relearned, essentially, or people that have spent their entire life in one line of work, say being specialised in making cars, they lose their job to a machine, it's unlikely they'll be able to retrain, meaning that they are simply a burden on society, and there are, of course, costs to themselves as well. Now, this loss of workers can have other negative effects. For all the disdain that many people may put towards people, humans are good at what we do. Workers are very flexible and adaptable, and in almost every situation are more so than a robot. A robot makes an error, you have to figure out what's caused the error and then spend a long time programming to ensure it doesn't happen. A human can learn like that, and sure, some people learn at different paces, but they are more adaptable. And this fact that they are flexible allows two benefits. First of all, there is more customization. Say you're building a bike that has 1,000 different combinations of colours, accessories and so on. A machine equipped for one specific task cannot do that level of customization. A person putting it together can. And there is also the added benefit that people like other people. When you're on a support call, when you're with a robotic phone voice, no one really likes that. Sure, it's more efficient than hiring people, but having humans who have intuition and more effective thinking can often be very appealing. And this point of the human touch can affect the quality of things, particularly in services. That's where humans really specialise over machines, but also in certain products. For example, the staple handmade is often a sign of luxury these days. And yeah, sure, you have cheap, say Korean or Japanese, German cars that are built by robots, but people find it more appealing to have a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley that is handcrafted in many more areas. Handmade goods are appealing because you know it was made by another person. But if we only use robots, we lose that. Then of course there is the genuine risk to workers beyond just losing their jobs. Many people, for example, may become scared of losing their jobs, which can negatively affect their mental health. And there are also negative knock-on effects. For example, if half the people are replaced by machines, you'll lose friends and colleagues in the workplace. You'll have more rifts, less humans to talk to, and it's really a slippery slope in many cases that could really detrimentally affect people. And then finally, there is of course a risk to firms as well. For example, if a firm becomes totally dependent on technology. The second that technology stops working, there are some issues. This poses a greater risk to short-term adaptiveness and productive capacity. For example, what if there's a power cut? Well, you can't do anything anymore. If a machine that is integral to, say, a production line breaks, it's very difficult to get it fixed like that. Say a worker was ill, you could get someone else in. You can retrain and adapt people far more effectively than with technology. With all that done, let's take a look at how these points compare to one another. Firstly, the point of cost. Some argue that machines are cheaper. You buy them once and then you're done, and you remove the external costs associated with employees, for example, healthcare, rent and holiday pay. Those disagreeing, however, would say machines can be more expensive, with extremely high upfront costs that may be too high to consider, and the fact that research and development for the future is far more expensive than, say, training someone to be better. On the question of are more or less jobs created, some believe automation creates jobs, because it creates new industries, and there are many external factors in the supply chain of machines. That means that more jobs are created than eliminated. Others, however, believe that more jobs may be made, but the issue is not so much how many jobs are made, but rather who gets those jobs, and the fact that the people losing their jobs to automation are not the same people who will be benefiting from the new jobs created by it. On the question of are machines more flexible, does that create an issue? Well, some believe flexibility isn't an issue because machines are more specialised. You get cheaper, better quality goods made more quickly, and machines may be reprogrammed to allow flexibility to exist. Others, however, believe that workers are far more flexible and adaptable in almost every area, which allows customization, retraining, and more specialised care, which then leads on to the next point of quality. Of course, machines are more efficient than workers. They will consistently produce the same quality of good over and over again without the risk of human error. However, machines remove the human touch, which for, say, services is extremely important. And many people also want humans to work over machines, for example, handmade goods. Sure, humans may not be as efficient, but the idea that it was made by a person, not a machine, is very appealing to some people. Then on the question of how does this impact the worker, some believe automation may be beneficial, although of course jobs are removed. For everyone else, it could be good. It removes boring, repetitive and dangerous jobs, which no one really wants to do, and creates a better work environment for employees as a result. Other people believe, however, that people will have negative mental health effects beyond just the fact they may lose their job. There is the risk they will lose their job. They will have less people to converse with. They will have greater risks, again, of mental health problems. They may lose friends and many more potential issues. And finally, whether or not it's really good for firms. Many firms will be able to operate more efficiently with greater productive potential with automation, allowing more profit and benefits over time. However, if they go too far, there is always the risk they become over-dependent on technology, which poses greater risks than being dependent on humans, because there's a much larger supply of people who would willingly work for you than there are machines that could break and ruin your entire business operation. Overall, those supporting automation believe that while there are risks associated with it, they are offset by the great number of benefits machines will bring. More efficiency, new jobs, new sectors, better goods, and so on. Others, however, are more skeptical and believe that while machines have their benefits, the potential risk of so much unemployment and the people who particularly suffer may be too great. And we can't ignore the fact that machines, despite being very efficient, are not always the perfect solution. It is likely, as time goes on, well, not likely, it's certain essentially, that machines will continue to replace more and more human jobs. The question is not so much how many jobs will be lost, but rather how will humans adapt to it? Will we find new places in the world of work that doesn't require, say, manual labour? Or will we all be doomed to a dystopian future when no one really has a job anymore? We'll have to wait and find out. As always though, I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic in the comments or on Twitter. Be sure to check back on Monday for another episode. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you soon.